All right. And let's start with announcements. Any announcements? Yeah, Wendy.
Sure, I'll share an announcement just because it's always nice to have good news. Just overnight, we successfully accepted our next 5-year institutional award from NOAA that supports a huge part of our program's efforts. And that is, the process started in February and ended overnight. So yay! And it supports our weather, ocean, and parts of our climate-related professional development activities for teachers. So big yay.
And then you won't have to worry about it for 5 more years.
Oh no, you start worrying today as you implement the new work immediately. but better than not having the award in place.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
I'm sure we're behind already, but for just this moment, we're going to celebrate.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. I'm really happy on behalf of the team.
Looks like Eric had his hand raised.
Thanks, Gina. And yeah, congratulations, Wendy. I know how important that is to get funding in place like that for like a long time period. It really makes projects propel, and it allows you some stability, right? So just quick ones. One is just sort of personal, but because Jim and Frank are on the call at the same time, or Jim, there he is. We're trying to actually get together in person next week here in the Bay Area. And we might, if we work it out right, we might do a Zoom call, the triad of us together with you all, but in one place. So figure out how that works. And just, yeah, talk about climate stuff here in the Bay Area, hopefully, and show Frank the area. Let's see, two other things I wanted to mention. Oh, one, this is also a very personal one because Cheney's on the call. He does bluegrass every, was it Thursday, Cheney? Thursday night, so you're all invited.
It's once a month on Tuesdays.
Once a month on Tuesdays. The big one, the more important one is a lot of you know I've been working on this project where we're trying to get some videos created, some short feed videos, 2 to 8 minutes that we're going to put together, cluster them, and show them at the COP conference this year. So we're really intending on going to COP in Egypt this year, kind of working with the team. And we're going to share that in a couple of weeks on the clean call. So we set up, I think, Gina, we set up 2 weeks from now, right, to do clean call, focusing on kind of COP27, what's coming. And a piece of that will be this project that we're working on. And at that point, we're going to start shooting the videos in October and then editing them at the same time. There'll be live Instagram kind of short videos, but then we'll capture all of that. And Frank, this is kind of related to your call out about how to participate asynchronously, and things from the States or from abroad. I think there'll be a lot of ways that will tie this to that effort. I mean, the idea would be to make COP accessible, not just to people attending, but to the global community. So that's going to be part of the intention of these videos, is to showcase kind of what's happening around the world with respect to climate change, but what people are doing to become more resilient and kind of solution oriented, and really uplift diverse voices and things that are happening across the globe, especially as it relates to Mediterranean climates, just because that's sort of the context of the project, but it has implications or relevancy beyond just California's climate brothers and sisters, if you will. So anyway, I might be reaching out, but if in 2 weeks, if you all, I'm going to put it out on the network and sort of broadcast it. That's what we're going to be doing.
Nice. Yeah, it is October 4th.
If I could jump on Eric too, I don't know if we ever checked in on this, but when you're shooting videos and doing voiceover and stuff in the Bay Area, definitely we can talk about equipment if it ever helps that we lend you. We have very nice cameras, really good audio, and we can really help maybe perhaps on equipment if that helps. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Jim. And I might lean on, that's awesome. And maybe I could just sort of, when you and Frank are in town next week, we could talk about the project and sort of noodle on it in a bigger sense too. I'd love your input as to the kinds of information that we might collect. Thank you.
So if I could jump out of the queue for a moment, I want to build on what Eric and Jim have been talking about, which goes along with the request here, which is that after we finish with announcements, if I could have maybe like about 5 minutes tops, I'd like to walk folks through something that I sent a number of you connections for, which is a portal for connecting to events at COP27. So anyway, that's all I want to say for right now.
Sounds good. We can definitely hop into that after announcements. Thanks for the heads up. I think Carolyn had her hand up next.
Awesome, thank you. So I did send this out to the listserv, I think yesterday, but I want to sort of drop this in here again. We're starting a new campaign called Florida, the Emergency State. There's this really cool, it was like a experiential learning thing where people were in sort of a gift shop in Miami and it was flooded all of a sudden. And we're asking people to sign a petition, you know, basically emphasizing the importance of funding for climate resilience. Again, it was sent out to the listserv. So if you can, you know, like, share and subscribe, then that would be really great. I know it says Florida, but you know, it's pretty applicable wherever. And also I've mentioned this the last couple of weeks, but just in case anyone hasn't heard or they forgot, we're having an in-person climate education summit in Miami in about 3 weeks now. So in about 10 days, I'm going to start to freak out. For now, I think things are going pretty well. But again, if you or any of your partners are local to South Florida, we still are, you know, we're still looking for people to sign up, and we definitely would love to have you.
Thanks, Carolyn. I'll sneak this in here. The Excel Summit is next Thursday and Friday, as most of you know, and I absolutely understand the freaking out 10 days before thing. So yes, I have definitely seen a few emails flooding around about that campaign. It sounds really cool. And yes, good luck with your in-person event, totally. Colleen.
Yes, hello, good morning. I'm actually at home sick on the couch today, so that's why I'm keeping my video on, so I don't see my couch too much. But I did want to turn it on so you can see the dogs hanging out with me on the couch while I am not feeling great. Yeah, so we've been having a lot going on up here in Alaska, and with REAP specifically, we've been expanding and hiring new people, which is super exciting. We have like 9 full-time people, and we're hiring 2 more folks, not more on the workforce, the next 2 people more like workforce development side of things than necessarily straight education, but really exciting and looking forward to having more reach. It's a huge state and we're pretty small, so it's nice to be having some more people on board. And just been doing, we have teacher trainings that we're kicking off. I'm not sure if other people have partnered with Project Learning Tree before, but we have a coordinator up here in Alaska who's been really awesome to work with. And so we're offering like a combo class that's like a Project Learning Tree training and an energy efficiency training for the curriculum that we have. So that's been really great. We've done a couple classes with her this spring and doing another one this fall, as well as offering some other trainings. And we have our STEAM conference coming up in October, which is like the science teachers conference. It usually happens every other year, but got postponed last year. So it's been 3 years since we've had one. And I'm going to be going down next month to Juneau to be a part of that. And the 3 educators on our team are all going to be presenting, and we have a table and stuff. So looking forward to connect with a bunch of people in our little corner of the world. And our Republican governor announced Clean Energy Week is going to be the last week of September. So go figure, having that support. Got to take the little wins. Not as cool of a win as Wendy, I will say. Congratulations on that. It's pretty awesome, but we'll take what I can get up here.
Sounds good. Jim, you had your hand up.
Sure, thanks. Thank you, Gina. So let's see a couple, keep them short. Let's see. First is on Thursday, Climate Generation is hosting it's a whole Twitter communication thing from 5 to 6 Eastern time, 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern time. The subject is overcoming climate change disinformation. So it'll be very interactive on looking at that. The teachers and people writing in and doing on Twitter will be communicating with John Cook at Skeptical Science, Melanie at Thinking Powers, myself at Mobile Climate Science Labs, and Erica at National Center for Science Education. So that's going to be an exciting and certainly a new experience for me doing kind of live Twitter interactive stuff. So that's going to be changing. The second one is happily yesterday, Climate Club at Lowell, the anchor of Climate Club DC, met for the first time for this year. This is the second year now, so we are all meeting together for the first class and meeting, and it's really exciting. Of course, we have returning students, we have students who have graduated and are now in high school, and then there are students who are coming up into Climate Club. Mostly now they are in the middle school, so they can be in Climate Club. So we have a constant 6th, 7th, and 8th grader field. So they will continue to link up, and maybe I'll talk to them too about clean presentation, seeing what we can do along that line. Thank you.
Sounds good. Chini?
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you all. It's been a while since I've been here. I have 3 kind of quick things. One, I've been meeting with Bay Area Sierra Club climate literacy group that's focused on passing climate resolutions at district levels. And I'm meeting with high school students to create kind of a blueprint and case studies that are kind of student facing to help high schoolers who also want to pass climate literacy resolutions at their districts. And so I guess the ask would be, if you come across high schoolers who are very motivated and organized, who might be interested in trying to pass climate resolutions at their school or their district, let me know. The second is I'm running a climate literacy study group with teachers throughout the year. So I'll be meeting 5 times with them. It's a group of social studies, science, and ELA teachers. And those will be full day virtual meetings. And so if you or your organization or somebody at your organization might want to do like a 30-minute presentation to an interdisciplinary group of teachers, you could let me know. And then I get the last announcement is at the end of November, I'll be running a social justice and project-based learning institute through Teachers College at Columbia University. And same thing, it's project-based learning and social justice, but there could be a couple sections for climate change and climate literacy. So if you or your organization would like to do a 20 or 30-minute kind of workshop, let me know. I will put my email address in chat. Thank you.
And Chini, if I could react to it's of course important to be checking in with the Sierra Club and working with them. What you're doing is great. I'm just reflecting over the last, I think about 8 years, there's been a group in the Bay Area Sierra Club that have spoken. We need to have the Sierra Club people need to volunteer and do work around education. And I would check in and say, great, this is good. And then every time I would talk to them, they'd say, well, we think we can do that next year. We're going to just focus on policy, right? I mean, it was just like Sierra Club we're about asking government to do something where we don't do it. We ask government to do it, which of course is important. So, I mean, I know that that's likely the level. That's exactly the way you described it, though. It's doing policy. Be ready that when they just have a very hard time getting around to actual education, right? So getting students to write letters and to do advocacy, yeah, they'll do that, and that's a good thing. So
this group I'm a part of is a very small committed group to like the Bay Area. It is true, like they're passing climate resolutions, the implementation is a lot harder, and they're partnering right now with 10 strands, and I think they're starting to do some interesting work in actual like action and implementation.
And if I could jump one more, this could even be a topic for clean in general things, at least where I've come from talking with or relating and interacting, working with programs, especially in California, that are looking at policy around the environment. Okay. I mean, for instance, there's even California has a law that said that environmental education should be treated equally with physical sciences and things. They should be part of the K-12 curriculum and do it. And where I'm getting at is in that case, then there was the question of, well, how did it actually get implemented? What happened? So many of the programs that you work with, they're interested in getting a policy passed. What happens is not their concern. So if something very bad happens or not so good happens, literally the assembly person who passed that law, that who wrote the law that ended up getting passed, when I went to her and said, do you know that Chevron is actually sort of taken over your program? That you have an editor, the editor of the program said, my job, she said, is to get bills written and passed. My job is not what happens to my bills once they get passed. And that's a very common thing. 350.org takes that point of view. Many of them take the bill. So those of us who are into implementation, we want to know that. And I think sometimes speak to people. It's indeed it's important to get money and important to get bills. But what about those of us who are implementing? So just giving something. And I think that speaks to the importance of our group here together. We implement. We see that things happen that are good. It's getting bills passed alone is not doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go where it's going to go. So thank you on that.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Well, do we want to jump in to your points, Frank? I know you wanted to spend a few minutes on that. And again, I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi has been so bad lately, so I'm just going to keep my camera off.
Okay, so let me take care of first things first here. I put into the chat here was the link to this page, as well as my email address. And what I'm going to do here just for a few minutes is to share my screen and walk you through this a little bit here for the purpose of, let me just straighten a few things out here. Too many screens. I want to walk you through this for the purpose of asking for some assistance. So as many of you know, wife and I have been to several COPs. This year we're choosing not to go to COP27 for a whole bunch of reasons. And one thing that I'm doing in the stead is working with local groups and national groups to figure out ways to get folks virtually connected in with the COPs. There's an awful lot of online content out there that you can almost entirely, that you can experience a lot of the COPs without actually spending the carbon to get there. So in any case here, what you're looking at here on the screen is the first page of the framework for a portal. And this is it says here it's an online portal to becoming a citizen observer to COP27. A little bit of preamble there. There's 4 pages to the site, some frequently asked questions, which is background information, opportunities for online engagement, as well as virtual exhibits. And I want to take you to the last 2 pages because this is where I'm looking for help. So what we're looking at down here is there's 2 things on this page. First of all, access to any of the daily logs that come up. The Climate Generations has been great about producing daily logs from their delegations going. Anybody who's familiar with IISD or International Institute for Sustainable Development knows that they've got quite a bit of content that's online, and they're really good about daily involvements. But down here is really the meat of it, the opportunities for online engagement. Because a lot of groups, including the UNFCCC and whoever the COP presidency is, will oftentimes live stream and or record events. So this is plenaries, side sessions, press conferences, you name it. And so what I've got down here is essentially a number of, well, this is the list of the constituencies that would that UNFCCC recognizes, as well as some informal groups. And then I threw in a special category down there called climate change and mental health. Anyway, let me just pop one of these open so you can get a sense of what's there and what I'm asking for. So let me go up to Ringo, which is research and independent, pop that open. And a friend of mine from Zurich just sent over this morning an announcement about some seminars, webinars that Ringo is doing in conjunction with Second Nature and University Climate Change Coalition that involve preparing for the UNFCCC negotiations and COP 27 webinar. And so right now this will click you over to all of the access pages. I'm trying to think, let me go down here to one of the informal faith groups down here. And there's actually, I've got.
You said your name. Who was this? Sorry.
Say again.
Oh, hi, Roger. How are you doing?
Sorry,
Okay.
I think she was unmuted.
Okay. So anyway, informal faith groups down there. Climate Cafe multi-faith is particularly important because the climate cafes in general, which were organized by Climate Reality Scotland and the Scottish government last year, were great at being able to take some of the remote communities in Scotland and set them up in community centers and things of this sort to virtually connect up with what was happening down in Glasgow. Oh, and one last thing to point out here real quick. I'm sorry that Don's not on this call because I'd love to talk with him about this. One of the things I'm adding in here is something called the virtual exhibit space. Last year, for instance, the Building Center in London had what they called a virtual exhibit. Anybody who's been to the COPs know that the exhibit area is pretty rich experience. And there's a number of organizations that are getting online and connecting in or making virtual versions of their exhibits. This pertains to some of us here, related exhibits from other places in the world. Notice Emily's online here, and you probably would recognize History of Climate Research, which is actually an interactive timeline from University UCAR. And then up here, Changing Climate, Our Future, Our Choice, which is the online complement to the exhibit that Museum of the Earth has there in Ithaca. And so my reason for all of these words that I just spilled out here just now is that I am, if you go back to the online engagement, you will find in a number of those categories a lot of this list under construction. So as your organizations or organizations associated with your organization get out and advertise things that they'll be doing from the COP or things or events proceeding up to the COPs, please let me know. My email address is right on the cover page. Let me know so I can add those. And that's going to be my project, since I'm not going to Egypt, is to really try to hunker down and make it as possible. Straighten my tongue out. try to provide as many resources as possible to get folks here locally and nationally who aren't in Egypt connected in. Okay, so I'm going to stop stop the screen sharing if I can figure out where the heck that button got lost at. There we go. Okay, so anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
Yay. Is anyone planning on going to COP in person this year? Oh, Eric, yeah, Eric. Okay, yeah, I'm not either. So I definitely will be looking for ways to plug in virtually.
Gina, maybe a quick comment, Frank, just following up on I think it's such a great tool you're developing. And I know, last year, we've talked about it before on the calls that, the UN is so antiquated with respect to all the systems. I mean, they were just trying to figure it out like everybody during COVID, how to make, hybrid or remote access possible. And they did, but I think because it's an old archaic structural system and because there's a lot of government, just to go to COP, you have to do physically, you have to do all these things to get credentialed. And then do you go to the green zone and the blue zone? And then on top of that, yeah, I think they don't, while they're ahead in terms of bringing everybody together, it's also like, I don't know, this is a larger conversation, which we could unpack at another call, but I think the UN itself is kind of broken in a lot of ways, because if you look at its structure, you've got the Security Council, the main countries are big five, but nobody south of the equator is represented at the top level of, and India being the second most populated country, Africa is not represented at all, South America. So it's like the whole thing needs to sort of be shaken apart and rebuilt in my mind to make it really representative of all of us. And then therefore to effectively propel the climate conversations, which have a lot to do with the inequities between the global north and the global south. So if you have a structure that doesn't empower the global south from the get-go, it's structurally broken in my mind and needs to be really looked at and talked about in a serious way. But all that being said, I just really applaud you kind of creating a portal for this. And I think it's a much needed tool to give access to folks. And to your point, you don't all have to burn carbon emissions to go. I mean, I think there's a huge value in going to things in person, and I'm excited about doing it. First time in my life, but 100% agree with you that we can amplify that opportunity manyfold by vehicles like you're creating. So thank you.
Yeah, and again, if you are interested, we have that Queen Call on October 4th. Talk about Eric's work a little bit too. So definitely attend that week if you want to talk some more about COP. I know this is that larger conversation, Eric, you were mentioning, and a lot of people were frustrated at COP26 with just a very exclusive event. And I know there's a lot of issues this year with it being the location that it's in, being unsafe and very expensive. So it's definitely tough.
I know, just related to, sorry, I don't want to monopolize conversation, but Deb Morrison has a lot of, she's planning to go, and she has a tremendous amount of connection into quite a few networks, including some in Europe. So I'm hoping that she's going to join us in 2 weeks and give some context for going to COP as well, and some of the international projects that she's kind of working on. So I think, it'd be nice if it was like, yeah, if there was a conversation among many of us, Frank, yourself included, like, that have either been or intending to go or have some sort of sense of how it works, because I still really don't have the whole lay of the land. I'm just kind of figuring it out as we go, kind of thing.
Well, one of the things that I think when you talk about having a conversation, I definitely would like to have a conversation with people who have been observers, because one of the things that really I haven't seen talked about is the observer experience. Why that's important, what it means, what's involved. because there is there are quite a few efforts around the planet to connect people up virtually with some of these big UN events. And the UN is interested in it, but the number of people that they have in the Secretariat, for instance, that's involved with ACE, 2 people in this very vast, big organization. So but still, it would be nice to have a conversation about what's involved in being an observer and what being a virtual observer is all about, and how to really make that an effective experience.
I'm just looking at the call schedule. We're set to have a informal conversation about COP on November 8th. So maybe at that time we can kind of bring some of those questions. And even if there's anyone we know that's been in person, you know, maybe Deb would join us that week or something if we asked her. Although I know she has a standing meeting at this time now, so it might be kind of tough. I have been in person at COP and it is very, very overwhelming. And there's a lot there. So I do think it's good to have a conversation about it, but maybe we could talk about those things. November 8th is that date. Bring some of those questions. Yeah. Great. Any other ideas folks are thinking about?
I'm just thinking that Jen Kretzer from the Wild Center was there last year, along with some youth climate delegates. So they might have some good insights.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let me you know who else might be good? Kristen Poppleton has been in person a few times. Why don't I send them an email? Jen, Kristen, and I know some other folks from, it's not just Kristen, some other folks from Climate Generation have been there. I'll shoot them an email and see if they might be free that day to chat. Usually Climate Generation tries to bring a delegation, so Kristen might even be going this year. I'm pretty sure she is.
In which case they may both be there, because the starts on November 8th. The COP starts on.
Okay. Okay. I don't think Jen is going this year, so maybe we'll have a better chance of getting her. Kristen may already be sucked up into it then. Great. Any other thoughts or ideas? We've got about 20 minutes left.
Well, if not, thank you to anybody who's got anything that they can contribute, and please do give me a holler if you do.
I didn't say this at the beginning since I think everyone is really sick of me saying it, but I'm just going to put the link to the Excel Summit in the chat again. We are confirmed with our agenda, so I'll be sending out a reminder email to everyone that's registered. If you do think of any last minute folks who might want to join, just continue sharing with them. But Clean has been working really hard on that. I'm excited to hear what comes out of it. We are tentatively planning, Katie and I met this morning, we're tentatively planning to do a presentation on November 1st. about the social network analysis that Clean did. So this summit, as you know, is one of those things coming out of that analysis. And we're really trying to, we conducted the survey and saw a lot of possible collaborations and are trying to make that happen. A lot of discussions and breakout rooms at this event. So definitely put that on your calendar too. If you're free November 1st, Katie's going to be sharing out about that survey we did.
And short preview to come at the Excel Summit next week. So we don't really have our analysis finalized enough to do more of a presentation on it, but Anna and I are going to share a couple of the Clean Network maps as best we can in some of the introduction stuff on the first day of the Excel Summit next week, just to kind of give a glimpse of what we've been seeing coming out of that network analysis. And then Anna's actually doing a talk about it at AGU. So we're hoping by November we have a little more to be able to share. But if you want to get a glimpse of the maps, at least, we're going to share a couple of those next week too. So teaser, come to Excel next week.
Would you two be up for sharing a little bit more about the structure of that? Like, is it intended for folks to attend? Because is it 6 hours a day or 8 hours? It's pretty long chunks, right? And then is it
Yeah,
like
5 hours a day.
5 hours. Is it the kind of thing where folks are attending for the entire 2 days, or is it, are there sort of snapshot pieces of it, or just maybe a little bit more? Great to hear more about.
Yeah, as much as possible. Gina's putting together an agenda, like a public agenda, and we'll try to share that out by Thursday. I know it's about a week in advance then, so you'll get a sense of like the more detailed schedule, but it's a real mixture of, we have, first part of the days we have a couple of like speakers or activities to try to yeah, there you go, starting to put it together to kind of orient the day, but it's a lot of breakout sessions and discussions and collaboration opportunities is what we're hoping for. Yeah, we have a keynote. This is the first day. We have a few, the keynote, and then we have the night talks to help kind of lead into the breakout discussions. And those are based around the 5 topical areas that were identified for the network analysis survey that we did. And so that's areas where you can kind of find your specialty and hopefully find others in your specialization and have discussions based on that. And then we'll have, that's most of the first day, some networking. Towards the end, we have kind of a speed dating type event to plan right before the networking to try to get people connected beyond just the breakout sessions. And then the second day, Gina, if you want to scroll down, is a sort of a reflection activity at the beginning of the day, talking about climate and mental health, and then more breakout discussions to really like dig in deeper on what we found on the first day and what was missing, what else we can keep doing, and then again trying to kind of really getting folks into sessions where they can find collaborations and talking about the work that we're all doing and where we can make connections and things like that. So a few talks, but a lot of just letting folks work with each other and talk to each other and connect with each other, because that's a lot of what came out of, like Gina said, the network analysis and looking at where we can try to help strengthen the nodes, as they call it, in the network analysis, and getting people connected and making sure, so much of the work that we do, we all know, is very regional and localized. A lot of groups also work nationally, but a lot of us work, even Clean, like we are a national organization, but then we're based at Ceres, so we have a lot of connections with teachers in Colorado more than other areas, and a lot of us have that. So it's trying to kind of make sure we can, not always all reinvent the wheel with everything we're doing, and making those connections to strengthen the work that we're doing and learning from others, but also doing the work regionally and locally as we need to. So that's kind of where a lot of this has come out of discussions. over the last few years from the leadership board discussions, as well as the big visioning work we did about a year and a half ago here in Clean. And then this network analysis, all that has come out of the discussions that happened over the last 2-ish years, and it led to that network analysis. And then also this Excel Summit is something that we talked about, is just having a forum space for Clean Network. It's really grown and expanded though, especially with the network analysis piece, to think about like, how can we make it bigger and interesting to folks across climate education sort of field and landscape beyond just the Clean Network as well. So we're trying to kind of broaden the view of it. And so, yeah, and it's the first time we're doing this, so we'll see how it goes, and we'll, you know, approve it again for next year. We're thinking of doing something like this kind of annually, hopefully going forward. And I know I'm talking a lot about it, but I will put a plug in for Gina, who is like organizing this whole thing and doing so much time and effort on this, and has really taken, you know, we kind of, like I said, it took several years of talking to the leadership board, talking to the Clean Network. You know, all of you contributed to that over the last couple of years. And Gina's really taken it since she came on to the project a year ago and created this summit. And we have a planning committee, but she's really been the backbone of getting this all together. So anything that I missed, Gina, that you wanted to add? Sorry, I know I had a little bit more of the historical context to bring it up to the event, but you probably have plenty of other things you.
No, that's great. Thank you. Thanks for the kind words. I'm really excited about our speakers. We have Dan Wildcat, who, if you don't know, he is a professor at Haskell University. He is Indigenous, and we'll be talking a lot about collaboration and partnership building on the first day. We have those Ignite Talk speakers focus on the 5 areas. A lot of really impressive people on that lineup there. And then I also want to plug the second day. We have Leanne Zeitz from Climate Mental Health Network kind of leading a reflection activity and talking to us a little bit more about climate change and mental health, and how we as a community can kind of manage that. And of course, as you can see, there's a lot of discussion and breakout rooms, and we just really want some new collaborations and give the opportunity for partnerships to come out of this. So yeah, I appreciate, I know I sound like a broken record, so I appreciate you all listening to us talking about it every week. It's going to be hopefully a big annual event though. So if you can't attend this year, anything next year. Jim, you had your hand raised.
Sure. So for Katie and Gina, I want to phrase this in a way that isn't like you need to do more, or this is more saying this is something we'll be very curious about it as we go into it, and then we want to be supportive of this. Is how much Clean as its entity able to be able it has the authorization, the funding. It's cool that it can play this role throughout the year. I mean, that's kind of it's a shift where, so often it's been, we have the Clean resources, and that's the fully funded, that's where a lot of the work goes. And then we have the Clean network, and, the network and collaboration, it's sort of like we have the teleconference, we have things, but it's more like, it isn't the fully funded whole thing. Is there, again, I guess what I want to say is, rather than you have to give me an answer, we have to get an answer now, or it has to be as part of the Excels, but certainly it's very exciting to the extent that Clean has authorization to help foster a collaboration. And perhaps, the things that clearly that would mean some growth, some change and growth in the website to include that as another thing. So is that okay? I'm just kind of phrasing that as definitely paying attention to whatever that is and want to be supportive of it.
Yeah, and I'm just going to respond to that before Eric jumps in. I think, Jim, this has grown to be something even bigger and larger, but the original thought of this was the groups, that we tried to kind of form, what was it, last summer, 2 summers ago, to do some of the have similar interests, do some of the work of how we wanted to structure clean calls, and how, you know, we wanted to talk about like growing the network, making connections within the network, and a lot of the issues people have around funding. You know, there was a few groups that were kind of working on like specific topics that were interested to the network, and this event grew out of a discussion of, let's have something where people can come together and like talk about those things and have inform those groups, you know, because we didn't quite keep them going after that summer. We were just so steeped in all this visioning work and this network analysis and all of that, and it kind of, and what we were even doing with the leadership board. And so this became the next step in that. And so I definitely, like, you know, the website is there. We do have the options to be able to help people continue some of this work. You know, coming back to the clean calls every week is a great forum for that. But also, if people want to break off and create groups from this, like, that's kind of what I'm hoping happens. And it can be something where you're talking about, like, you know, we do workforce development, or we do professional development for teachers, or whatever. We want to kind of collaborate on that. It could also be we want to collaborate on, you know, things around the clean network and what we want to see happen with the weekly calls, or this, or maybe we get, you know, more people interested in helping plan this annual event, or whatever it is, you know. So I do think I foresee that happening, and I hope that kind of comes out of this. It doesn't have to be big picture climate landscape. It can also be, how do we just get together and talk you know, and like structure that. So definitely, like, we're here to help support that. Again, we only have so much funding on the network side of things, and that's why it's kind of up to all of you to help, you know, create, like, do some of that work as well. But we have the structure, and we have the you know, some of the support to be able to help do that. So yes, I'm 100% with you, and I just wanted to clarify that that is something that I think can come out of this event next week. Eric, you have your hand.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking on what Jim you had mentioned, and Katie, what you shared too, like just in terms of models and sort of empowering folks to move forward. I really appreciate the analysis that you all have done, and that this is a sort of a spin-off or an evolution of where you're hoping clean will go, because the same thing's true with these professional development workshops that I've run in the past, and now sort of am re-engaging in at them. And it's sort of this idea of a train the trainer model, right? So you start with an idea, and we did a 2-day institute, but the thought is to grow that larger, but then looking over at Climate Generation's virtual institute and looking at other regional models for where folks are doing the same kind of work. I think there's a chance to not reinvent the wheel, but to sort of, and so I tend to think geographic too, like you were saying about being located in Boulder, and you have that network, and, you know, Jim and I have huge, and Cheney have huge networks in the Bay Area, but there's those networks, but then there's also, we're involved now in conversations like everybody on the call that are international or national in scope, at least, right? So I think, like, to me, one node I think about in strengthening is that regional node, like what's happening. And that's what Climate Generation's sort of institute sort of made clear to me, having attended for the first time, was there are huge networks in certain regions of our country, and then there's voids. You know, there's these blank spots in the country where we're like with Carolyn, you know, you working in Florida sometimes, or folks, there's not as much activity, there's a lot going on, but it's not always uplifted, or it's not always, you know, there's not as much ability to sort of move that regional work forward in some parts of the country. Sometimes it has to do with population, sometimes it has to do with politics or policy, or, you know, whatever it is. But I think that that's a great move to sort of go in the direction that you're going, and appreciate it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that there's space for that, of like, how do we work regionally? How do we work locally and nationally and collaborate with each other? And like those discussions and groups who want to talk about that. And then there's also like, you know, we've talked about how do we structure the clean calls for years now, and we still like, you know, we've kind of settled on this every other week presentation, informal discussion, and kind of letting the presentations go in the summers since folks are so busy. But I think we've also all talked about like changing that up too, and doing things differently, and how do we invite people for presentations and things like that. You know, like that can be a group that talks about that stuff. So yeah, I'm excited. We'll see. I have no idea what will come out of next week, but I think that's the point, and that's kind of how Clean Network has worked in the past. And I think that's where it'll be nice to try to bring folks together to have those conversations in a space that's not just the Tuesday calls. That gives us a little more space for that, because that's what I see as the value of the Clean Network, is that we can, you know, work on all these different levels. So I'm excited to see what comes out of it. I'm just gonna say I have to run. I have another meeting at noon, and I just need to go grab some food in between. But it's nice to see you all. And yeah, Gina, I don't know, do we have a presentation next week? Maybe we allow some space for talking about the Excel Summit next week too. If folks have other questions, kind of a couple days in advance, because Gina is working on an email we'll send out, like I said, on Thursday, to kind of, for folks who are attending, that will have more information for you. But I think it'd be nice that, Gina, do we have any space in the schedule for the clean call next week that we could have people just even 20 minutes to kind of readdress this? Yeah, that'd be great.
We don't have anything on the schedule, so we can chat more about it then.
Awesome, cool. Well, I'm gonna jump off, and yeah, we'll talk in on Tuesday if you need me at all. But Gina's still here for 5 more minutes, and
Thanks, Katie. Oh, sorry, sneezing a lot. Do you feel like you could use looks like we're all set. So we probably hop off. But yeah, definitely let me know if you have any questions in the meantime. And yeah, good luck, Jim and Eric and Frank. Hope you have a good time in the 3D space. Thanks all.